Hey, if I could have your attention just for a second, if you just give me a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. And I will now call the Estacada City Council to order. And if you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sadie, can I have roll call, please?
Counselor Dunsmere,
Here.
Counselor Hughes, Counselor Lidkey,
Here.
Counselor Strobel,
Here.
Counselor Tenbush,
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine.
Here, thank you very much, Sadie. We are at the first citizen and community group comment. I have nothing in front of me. Any over there? Any online? All right, great. So we are now at the consent agenda. You've all had a chance to peruse this. Are there any questions, changes, or anything to be made? No. So can I have a motion on the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Thank you. We are now at the department and committee reports. I will start with Jerry. Do you have anything?
The DEIC met today. It's a good meeting. They met with the one applicant to fill the opening that they have. It was a very good conversation with Brittany. She's very intelligent and I think she's going to be a good fit. Today was just their workshop. So, there were no decisions really made today. Just went through their workshop goals and was just a good meeting. So.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry. Katie, you have anything?
I don't. I know the Parks and Recreation Committee met at the last week of June, but I was very busy that week and was not able to attend. So I'll try to get an update for you guys next time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Paul.
Nothing on the library board. Recently, we did, I don't know if Melanie's going to touch on this or not, but we did kick off the transportation system plan. Today met from 3 to 5, said a very, very good turnout, great group of folks looking over this thing. And, this is to look at a lot of things going on with Estacada, how the roads are laid out, safety, flow of traffic, just a lot's going to go into this thing. I was really impressed with the group that was heading this up. And they will present to the council, I believe, at our next meeting. Is it a workshop that we're going to have?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a workshop at 6 o'clock before your regular meeting.
Yeah, looking forward to this. Glad it's kicked off. Looking forward to work that's going to be done on that as well, too.
Thank you.
The DEC didn't meet this Monday, so we're meeting next month.
Great. Thank you. And for me, I have the C4, but I was kind of out of sorts this last month between having the flu and our wonderful COVID finally got me. But I got through it in one piece. I'm back stronger than ever. So I want to thank all of you for just being there. So thank you. All right. We have the city manager's report.
All right, I just have a few things to share. Kind of a bullet point list here. I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a vacancy on the council as Councilor Justin Gates stepped down, and that will be filled by appointment of the council. And so the deadline for those applications are July 28th at 5 p.m. If anybody has ever considered wanting to run for council, but would like to get their feet wet first. Now is a great time to apply. And the council will be appointing one person to fill that seat through the end of the year. I did send out to the city councilors and mayor the information from the League of Oregon Cities. They have been working on their priorities for the 2023 legislative session. So check your email. If you don't have it, let me know. But I need to get that back. You can vote. I put a little voting sheet in there. I think this is how you've done it before. Send me your priorities. I'll tally them up. And then at our next council meeting, we'll discuss those. There could be a clear cut top 5, or you guys might need to discuss and decide, because we get one vote for this council. Each city gets one vote. And so we'll come to a conclusion. And I think it might take you an hour to go through all that. It was quite a bit of reading. So just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that. We did receive the Oregon State Marine Board grant to continue with the Lakeshore project to get it to 100% engineering and construction drawings. So that's very exciting. We'll be moving that forward. Taylor's going to be running that project and working with our the engineering firm. And so I don't know if you guys know, Skip Hack used to be on our Parks and Rec Commission. He's very excited. He's like, great, now we just have to get the money to do the project. So if anybody wants to help out with that or has great ideas, it's probably a couple years down the road, but it is exciting. We'll have our plans and be able to move forward on that. So the welcome sign is up. That has been a council priority for a couple of years. It is finally up. We have a couple of announcements on it. And there's a lot of training that we can get on how to use this. I'm sure it's very underutilized right now with just a couple of, because you can do really cool stuff with it, but we're going to have to get the staff up to speed on how to do that. So it is over in the parking lot across the street. So don't read it when you're going down the highway. We might have to plant a bush. You can see it from the highway. I didn't think you were going to be able to see it from the highway. So we'll have to see how that goes. And then lastly, the LOC conference is coming up in person this fall. And so whoever would like to go, it's a great conference. They have good training, good connections with other cities and city councilors. It's October 5 through 7, which is usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm not sure on that, but October 5 through 7, it's going to be in Bend this year. And so if you can attend that, let me know. The registration starts on Wednesday. So I'm planning to go. And I think the first day it might just be for counselors and the mayor. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the schedule, but I'll plan to go and would love it if anybody else could go as well. So that is what I have to share for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. We are now at council business. I have ordinance 2022-008, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive cable service franchise to Comcast of Oregon. I'll let you speak to that.
Okay.
What is the right? No,
Or you recuse yourself before a potential conflict of interest.
I need to recuse myself due to not a potential conflict of interest, but a conflict of interest. So I won't be involved in discussion or voting on this tonight.
Okay.
Can they vote with this?
With
There's 4 of
four,
us.
yeah, that's true, yeah.
Okay.
They can do
Yeah,
that.
it's majority.
Okay, so this back in May 23rd, you were presented with the information that Comcast Cable is interested in expanding their services into Estacada. And council directed staff to prepare a franchise agreement for council consideration. So this is the ordinance and the franchise agreement. I've worked together with Peter Watts, the city attorney, and Tim from Comcast helped us to work on this. And we feel confident about it. But I guess the questions for you, I think I didn't even make a staff recommendation. It's just all up to you. The questions, but I do feel confident for you to say yes. If you feel that, will the franchise agreement with Comcast of Oregon for cable services be beneficial to the residents of Estacada? And should this proposed franchise agreement be approved? I think I have a typo in there, sorry. So I'll let you discuss that. If you have questions, Tim is here and is happy to answer questions, but I think we got quite a lot of those questions answered before, so I'll let you discuss.
I have to say, I was a little disappointed by the line map that we were given with the green areas being underground and the blue being aerial. It looks like pretty much all of downtown is aerial. And I guess my main question, I understand based on our conversation that we had with Comcast back in May, that they said expense. I get it, expense, but we've also been working over time on trying to get all of the lines that are currently aerial and getting them underground. Is this a plan that they have immediately, or is there like a chance that eventually they could get these underground? Because to me, honestly, I'm a little scared about the map and how much of the downtown area would be aerial lines.
And I could let Tim speak to this too, but I think this is kind of a rough sketch because anywhere that the utilities are underground, they will be putting them underground. And yeah, if you want to go to the microphone, that would be fine. So like this shows that Broadway is aerial, but obviously Broadway's underground. In next spring, we're going to be putting Main Street underground. Pretty much the rest of kind of Old Town Estacada is already above ground. So I don't know if you'd want to speak to that a little bit, Tim.
Sure, yeah. So if everything is underground, we're definitely going underground.
I'm at
Okay,
overhead.
Yeah, it's not, we're not put poles up. We don't do poles. We don't own any poles. So you'll use PGE or a telecom company's poles, whatever, and we rent them, which is a typical process for hanging fiber, wax, those types of things. So like I can see cables right there. So what typically happens, it's called city decides everything's going undergrounding. What actually happens then when if we're on a pole with the power company and maybe another telecom user or whatever, then we all share the costs of it all going underground. So it ends up being cheaper for everybody. Or wherever the franchise is written requires us to go underground if everything is underground. And typically maybe it's the best thing is we follow the poles. If there's poles, if there's not poles, then it goes underground.
That is different than our current local company. They've chosen to put everything underground. Just they feel that that's a better way to go. So it would be different.
And then just to clarify on 3.3, there is a section addressing this as well too, undergrounding and beautification projects in those areas of the franchise area where all the transmission or distribution facilities of the respective public utilities providing communications and electrical services are underground. Then the grantee shall likewise construct and maintain and operate the cable systems with our municipal code, which is identified as underground utilities. Does that mean like on Main Street, once we go there, if Comcast beats us to the punch on Main Street, utilities will be above ground because they currently are now. But then when we do our Main Street project, at that point, they'll be moved underground.
That's typically what happens.
Okay? Checking on that one.
And we'll coordinate on that since we're so close to moving Main Street, just downtown Main Street, moving it underground, we would coordinate that so that they're aware and don't have to do a double installation.
And if there's like new underground, a big, because it saves us money, it saves whoever, if it's a residential developer or commercial, whatever, then we end up sharing in costs and getting the conduit down there, and it just is cheaper and less expensive to do it that way.
Okay, Judy?
Okay, so just so it's a matter of public record, I'm looking at the section that you just cited, and I guess I'm feeling a little bit better about the fact that anything that is currently underground, you're going to put underground.
Correct.
And in the event that you are aerial, when, in the event that all users of the public way relocate aerial facilities underground as part of an undergrounding or neighborhood beautification project, grantee shall participate in the planning for relocation of its aerial facilities contemporaneously, that is a big word, with other utilities. Okay, I honestly, with that section being there, that makes me feel a little bit better about the map that I'm looking at, so.
And the map was, we were at, we kind of just put one together that kind of looks, what we see is kind of what's underground and what's, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be, the aerial facilities is a very common practice these days. Particularly in areas maybe out of more rural and where you maybe have fire hazards and, things like that. And there's a big effort. It's not uncommon. I mean, we probably have, I couldn't say at any given time, we have. So it's just, and then it becomes part of our maintenance budget, if you will, not the construction budget. So two different pots.
So in the agreement, it talks about online Wi-Fi. So that's the ones you're running on the lines. How are you going to deal with that being underground? How do you guys convert to that or provide that?
Yeah, there's a process where that we have that capability. So where we have, because there's a lot of cities where it's all underground and we have. It's not like there's poles and the Wi-Fi is hanging there and everything else is underground. That's not how it happens. There are Wi-Fi units that are for underground type areas. So.
Okay.
Great. Any more questions? We thank you for the clarifications.
Sure.
I do have one more question
Sure.
before you sit down. And I probably, we've already talked about this, but so the lines are going, the cables are going on the poles or underground and they're going past all these homes. How does it get? This is probably a technical question. How does it get from the pole to the house? Is that, I mean, it has to go underground or it has to go overhead? And do you know how is this going to be a benefit to our community? Are they going to be able, do they pay for that? Is it something that Comcast takes care of or splits with them? So it's not just running down the road past them, but people are actually able to access it.
Right. So, so typically, from the right of way to, say Sadie's house, if she were going to get Comcast, and we pay, that includes the undergrounding up to 125 feet.
Okay.
Okay. And then after that, it's usually a 50.
Mhm.
Typically, in our region, we go up to 150 feet because we actually, most of our agreements say 125, it will go further than that. But then it's at our cost. It's not
Okay.
the customer. So if the customer wants the service from where our main line is along the right of way to their house, we pay for that.
So in town, it's pretty much, 125 feet, quite a ways. Out of town, it might be an issue for people, but for the people in Estacada, usually your house is not that far. Thank you.
I have one question to that because I am further than 125 feet. Our road is a private road.
Right. that's
So
right.
you've got 5 houses on that road. Would you be putting cable to each one of our houses if we chose to go that? Or are we gonna have to accrue some cost? to Get it down there because you're talking probably, I would say 1,500 feet, maybe 2,000 feet to the end of our road. And there's 5, like I said, 5 houses on that road. So I'm curious to see how that would play out.
I'm looking for something specifically here.
Historically, doesn't it usually, I've seen Comcast work with this in the past and it was term of contract to recover cost for something like that. Is that something how you guys typically handle it?
Right. Well, let me say, right. give me a little more on that?
So basically, if, for example, there's 5 homes on there and they're gonna be servicing all the homes, they'll do, if it's gonna cost X amount, they'll do a longer term, maybe 5-year subscription contract with them in order to recoup the cost on the property. Like they'll basically subscribe to services for 5 years at the homes.
So if you have
Something along those lines.
a private road that is where there's multiple houses, then we look at a cost share amongst those houses, those who want to get this, the service. And, which is something that does happen, where we, there's a, how do I say this? Where there's a density level, what you said 5 houses in.
5,000 and about 15 to 2,000 feet.
So
So,
you're talking a third, a little more than a third of a mile.
yeah.
And typically we will build those. One thing was looking for is a density requirement here, which typically states something like that.
Sorry, I didn't give you a heads up on that question, Tim.
Oh,
So
no,
you
no,
could have
no,
had
no,
that.
that's okay.
You could have already looked that up and it just kind of, all of a sudden it popped into my head.
It's a very important question to me.
Right. So what we use Hubbard, right, Melanie?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we did. I'm looking at it right here too. It's called, what are you looking for? The,
So I don't, I'm glancing through it, typically it's called a density requirement. I'm not seeing it here, which is something, say, we could pull this and throw something. And what's that's gonna say is that if there is a road that has so many residents per quarter mile or mile, which is, it's called a density requirement, would be required to build out.
I'm pretty sure Cascadia Ridge has a few
there's,
roads that are not all the way through as well, right? They're more of a private
we
lane.
have,
type
there is
situation.
one road in Cascadia Ridge is
Okay.
private and then Cedar Lane. What is
Cedar Creek Lane.
Cedar
That's
Creek
one.
Lane, up on top of Fourth Street Hill, that's also private. So I know of 2, I don't know of any more private roads inside city limits.
Okay.
But
So what we would do then? So you're talking a private road.
Well, private in a sense. I mean, there's no gate. It's not private like that. It's, and Reliance Connects is serviced at that area. That's what we have right now.
But still the requirement would be in place regardless.
Yeah.
So if you all want, I don't have a problem. We can grab some language from another franchise, Melanie, that's a density requirement, meaning that define really, and clearly puts it in here, and I'm totally okay with doing that.
Good. I think we should.
And that would set us back a couple weeks. We can have it, I can have it over tomorrow, and that's not a big deal. It really isn't. It's typical the way we do business. Yeah, and it's gonna say something like, maybe 15 to 20 homes per mile, or a smaller number for quarter mile. So it's typically quarter mile and mile. We can do that.
Is it also possible with the new revision to include some language to help answer Melanie's question about like, how far of a setback
Sure.
we're looking at, people being able to access it without cost to the citizen kind of
We
thing?
can bring some language in that addresses that as well. Actually, that's a better way to do it.
I would
so,
love that.
yeah.
Yeah. Just a way of holding everybody accountable, like this is what we agreed to, and if for any reason there's a disagreement, let's bring out the paperwork kind of thing, so.
is that something that you typically put in a franchise?
Mhm.
Is that okay? All right.
Yeah, you see it in the larger ones, but
Mhm.
it doesn't matter.
Would it be better to bring that back, present it at the next council meeting, pre-written, or just adopt this and add that? But we want to see the language
I
I
first,
would,
right?
I would.
Okay.
I think that's a more responsible way. So,
Because we'll need to you know, literally, we're gonna be cutting and pasting
Mhm.
from another franchise, and we'll just tell you which one that came from, and
Okay,
and if I were you, I'd want the language.
I'm kind of there. We're gonna do
Gosh,
this,
I
we're gonna do
thought I
it
had
right.
all Thought about, so sorry about
Go
that.
ahead, Keith.
Is it possible when you do present it to the council next time that you highlight or color the paragraphs that we're adding, at least that way, so we know which ones are new?
Yes. we
Thank
can
you.
do that.
Yeah, no problem on both of those points.
Joel?
A quick question for you. So assuming that at the next council meeting, this is passed and the franchise agreement is signed to move forward. What's your kind of timeline you're looking for before you start laying line and stuff? So.
Okay, so we do a first reading, you do a first reading, and then
So it'll be August 8th. 30, yeah,
After
so
that.
September 8th,
September 8th. So
7th.
potentially, you know, start our permitting process and all of that, engineering and everything in Q3, try to get done then. So we're looking at potential construction at best case scenario, Q4, most likely
November, December, January,
yeah.
February, March.
Tomorrow I meet with the Clackamas County study session, and they're approving a amendment to our franchise agreement with them that will allow us to build out to Eagle Creek, which is all kind of part of this, our whole project.
Good.
And so what I'll is in addition to the density language, and then the language that we'll talk about, the requirements that we have to get service to a customer's house. And then what happens if it exceeds 125 feet, you know, that there's a cost share there for that piece. We pay for the first 125. Then after that, it's shared timeline for engineering, permitting, and beginning.
Great. That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I think it's gonna make it easier to make a decision on that.
Yeah.
So Melanie, I think I shared with you, I have that little procedure on the 25th.
Yes.
I have a map. Meeting. So I may push it out for 2 weeks.
Or
After
we
that,
could send it, if we send that out in the packet, like the week before. You could, you could see if you have, I don't know, if you want to
Yeah.
push it out,
I'm,
fill in for you.
it would probably be somebody you've not seen, and I was hoping to not do that,
Mhm.
since you know who I am,
Well,
but
couldn't you, Melanie, send out a special meeting notice? We could do it online if we had to. That's why we have this. So if it comes up
Mhm.
and he's got this ready, we can bring it to us online on our thing and we can do a special meeting. It would only take a few minutes, right? If he's got a time crunch type thing.
We could, yeah, well, I'll work with Tim and figure out how we can put that together best.
because what we've talked about tonight, I can have to Melanie by close of business tomorrow. This is
Mhm.
standard stuff.
And we can move it along, I think, faster if we set up a special. Would that be okay with all of you? If we did that on the internet, on our system?
I think if we could get, like, if you guys take a look at it, if you think you're gonna have questions and you want Tim to be here to ask those questions, we'll push it out. And if you think that you look at it and you're probably not gonna have a lot of questions, we could do it on the 25th. And then at least we could try it on the 25th, because I'm trying not to have a meeting at the end of August. So that if we push it out, then we'd be way into September and what do you think about that? Other than having a separate.
I still think even if it's standard, we should still have Peter review the revisions to
Yes.
make sure everything's good there too. So we need time for that as well.
I will,
So-
yeah, and Peter is gonna be out until next Monday, but I say let's put it on the agenda. If you're not comfortable with it, we'll hold off and wait till Tim gets back.
I could have somebody here.
Mhm.
I may even pull my boss and say, look, you need to go
Mhm.
out there. I mean, I don't want somebody to appear virtually. If that
Mhm.
makes sense.
No, I
I
got
mean, I would prefer that we're out here in person and we have, it might be 2 or 3 people versus just me. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not set on you having to come out. I mean, I think as long as someone who can answer the questions, we're good, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I can cover that. Like I said, it might be multiple people. Who, because they haven't been around as long as I have.
That works.
Okay.
I think we're all comfortable with that.
So we'll do that. We'll get it. Tim and I will get that together. We'll have Peter review it. We'll put it in the packet. If you guys want to approve it at the next council meeting, we'll move forward. If you'd rather wait and get more questions answered, we can wait, but at least we have the option for you to approve it on the 25th, if you so desire.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if anything else comes up, please
Okay,
let me know and we can add to. So I'm willing, want to work with you and make sure you have an agreement that works for you and don't want to force anything on you. Okay? No, and these are great points that you pulled out here and like the Hubbard franchise that was used was a little bit simpler than a lot. So, but it's still, we would operate the same way regardless, but I think it's better to have it in black and white versus guessing. So,
I agree. Thank you. Okay.
thank you, Tim.
Enjoyed the meeting again. Yeah. Okay, next on our list, we have the ARPA funding discussion. I'll hand that over to you, Melanie.
Okay, so back in October, you had a discussion with former city manager Carrie about this. The city will be receiving or has received. We received both payments already. We received the first one. We'll be receiving a second one. Each one is $418,000, so a total of $836,000 for the American Rescue Plan Act. And previously you had discussed a variety of ways of which that fund could be applied. I included in the packet the final rule on how those funds can be spent. And basically they've made it very simple that we can use it just to quote unquote, replace lost public sector revenue with a standard allowance. But I feel like it would be best for you to discuss it, look at the options. My recommendation, and from what you had talked about previously, would be to put it towards the wastewater treatment facility that is upcoming. Because it's not like what some larger cities have received, but it's close to $1 million and could make a dent, a tiny dent, but a dent. And it would be something that benefits the entire city. And so I'll let you discuss that, or if you have questions, I'll try to answer those, but I just would like to, I didn't even put a staff report in there. I think just the rule that is in there. So if you have questions, we can ask, but just why don't you discuss and then make a motion on how you'd like those funds applied.
it seems like the general consensus, and maybe I'm off, but it seems like that was the general consensus of the group, was wastewater treatment. But I was wondering, is there a timeline in which the money needs to be spent? And if we put it towards that, would we have something to spend it on at this point? I know we're a couple years out from things really kicking in.
Yes,
on
there
this.
is a timeline. Which page is that on? It's within. There we go. Yep, by 2025.
Okay.
But we are actively so that's 3 years out, and we'll be well into it by then. We should be getting close to being done. But right now we're working on acquiring property easements. We're going to be going out for an RFP with an engineering firm that can manage this size of a project. And we'll have the engineering being done. So there's a lot of funds that can be preliminary funds that will be spent towards the construction of the new facility, but this could go towards. So we wouldn't have to worry about that timeline, about running up against it.
No, that's agreement.
How would you like the motion to read?
Somebody could move to apply the ARPA funding to the wastewater treatment facility project. That would be general enough to include the whole.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
All right, first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
You have
you.
direction. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I love it when motions are read.
Just winging
All right,
that
the
one.
last thing on my list is alternate surplus property process discussion. We've been through this before. So Melanie. why don't you
Yes,
tell us how
there-
that works?
This is just a discussion. We're not asking for a decision tonight, just some direction. And Peter is on the phone, I believe. But that's Peter Watts, the city attorney, and I will let him go ahead and speak to you about this. This is basically to help with the sale of properties that have been, especially been renovated through the urban renewal process that have active businesses in them, and how to get those out of the city's ownership and into private hands. So Peter, I'll let you go ahead and talk about that. And I did table, there's some.
Can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we had talked about this a little bit last time. This is kind of consistent with what maybe has happened in the past, so that the idea with the urban renewal district is to end blight to the extent possible, also supporting local businesses. And this would allow in that urban renewal district for city-owned businesses, business owners have been in them for a period of time to be able to enter into the sale agreement with them. We've been informed by the property owner who everyone wants to buy their building, that they want to buy their building. And I think that's a priority of the city. The city doesn't really want to be the landlord. But in the event that the city purchases buildings down the road and does something similar to what we did in this instance, this would provide that ability for this special category of buildings.
Okay,
Okay, so we have a couple questions here.
I'll start off with Jerry first.
Okay.
So the money we get back from this, from the sale, is there stipulations on how that money's used? Could we use it like towards our grant program, or is there somewhere specific that money has to go?
It would go back into your urban renewal fund, assuming that you guys used urban renewal dollars in order to do the transaction in the first place, then those would be returned. And then as far as how it could be used, it would be like any other urban renewal funds. It would be on projects that were identified in your urban renewal area as part of your urban renewal plan. So if they're qualifying projects in that, then the funds could be used.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Katie.
So the ordinance proposal that I'm looking at on the table, this isn't being proposed as like a true ordinance, or is it? I guess I'm confused about that, is my first question.
So we want to do, the reason this is just a discussion item versus versus an ordinance is because we wanted your feedback on this program if you're comfortable with it. The reason I added whereas clauses is because this program is authorized by a specific statute. And so those of you reviewing it, I knew some of you would probably want to take a look at that statute, which is why we put it in there, kind of to point to the legal authority to enter into this program.
Okay, so what I'm looking at is already statute.
Just that one section.
This
that
program
says
is allowed under state statutes.
The ORS 221.7.
So I guess that leads me into my next question, which is that last paragraph. Now, therefore, the city ordains as follows. If a business owner has occupied a city-owned property for 2 years and wishes to buy the building, and the city wishes to sell the building, the city may sell the building to the business owner for an amount established by an independent third-party appraiser or at a mutually agreed upon price. that language really kind of screams, we're talking about a specific scenario. Is there a reason that we put 2 years instead of any other amount of time, or is it really because of this one specific scenario we've been talking about?
No, I put in 2 years because oftentimes it's within 2 years that people are really able to see whether the business is viable or not. Sometimes in the first year, they're really trying to build momentum. We could change that to 1 year. We could change it to 3. I think 2 is probably enough for them to demonstrate with financials that they can qualify for a loan. I think it will be hard unless the business is just absolutely booming for a business after 1 year of financials to qualify. But I literally pulled that number out of the air.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Kind of going off what Councilor Dunsmere and what you're saying, Peter. When I owned a business, when I wanted to get a loan for the business, most banks in the industry required 2 years of financials before they were loaned to a company. So it seems, I think 2 years is kind of standard across the industry from what I've seen, at least with bank wise. So, and then it kind of makes sense for 2 years for it to get that loan. Yeah, and I get the short period, and 3 years might be longer, but 2 years is what I think the bankings would require. So at least gives them that amount. So, and in 3 years, I think we're kind of, we can choose to do it at 3 years, but if 2 years is our minimum, it allows us to go longer if we so choose. But we couldn't go less than 2 years. I think that's what it says, right, Peter? So I'm reading that right?
Right, because it just in my experience, because I have done in the past, I've done a lot of private side work. I found that lenders really need 2 years, and sometimes cities need 2 years as well, because you want to make sure that this is the right fit. You want to make sure it's what you were expecting. So that, from a commercial standpoint, I think that's kind of the period that banks would look at, and probably kind of a period that the city would look at too. You could always say, we don't feel like you're ready after year 2. Let's take it out a year. When I started this, I was told, the city really doesn't want to be a landlord. So I kind of used the period of time that I thought was the least amount of time to be commercially reasonable. But I'm more than open to another time period.
Thank you. Oh,
Appreciate the explanation on that. I'm after hearing the discussion, I'm good with the 2 years on that. That seems reasonable. But kind of building off of that, the amount established by an independent third-party appraiser or at a mutually agreed upon price. Where does the mutually agreed upon price, how does that fit into this? It seems like we could come up with anything on that. How do we make sure that
it's going to, there are instances where, the county does an assessed value, and then they also do a real market value. So the idea was if a property owner came to you with a proposal that was higher than the county's real market value on the property, and the city was comfortable with it, and this is gonna have to go in front of the city council. So if one of these proposals is coming up, you guys are gonna get to review it. If somebody came in with a really good offer, then I wanted the city to have the ability to do it, without the cost associated with the independent third-party appraiser. If you guys only want to do it with the independent third-party appraiser, then that would be an option. Again, this is something that the city council is going to have to authorize because it takes your permission. So what I was looking to do is provide flexibility.
Off of that, my only one thought as you're explaining that, Peter, was while we don't have a limitation on going higher, my concern would be if we can set something in there, some sort of language that would mean we can't go too low below like what the market value is. So if we wanted to sell something and it's 10% below market or something, that'd be my concern if we have something there that kind of gives us some sort of low guidelines. And so that the people understand where our limits are, that, they know that
Yeah,
we're
we
gonna
could-
still reach for that.
We could put that in, the other benefit of selling the property is you're avoiding the costs associated with the fees associated with a realtor. But we can put some language in there that says, not less than 10% of the RMV. We can figure it out.
Yeah, great. Katie.
Personally, I wouldn't agree with any language that says that we wouldn't accept anything below a certain percentage of the RMV, just because I guess personally, I see there's two different types of people. People who could see the government as being in the for-profit business and needing to bring in more money. That's definitely one thought process. And there's the other thought process that the government's job is to provide a service, to increase the quality of life for its people. And even if that comes at a cost to the city government, if a situation is going to benefit the city long-term, even if it doesn't show a high profit up front, that the cost long-term is more beneficial to the city if we were to sell to a really good business that we want to see downtown kind of thing. If this were to happen again, I just don't think that the government should be in the business of making profit off its citizens. So I personally wouldn't agree to language like that in an ordinance or a proposed resolution.
What would you rather see? I mean, I'm leaning towards just having it, the appraiser be mandatory, a third-party appraiser.
Well, so let me give you an example. So we bought the property for X amount of dollars and we agreed to sell it for X amount of dollars, knowing that we were probably going to be taking a loss. But during those 3 years, we have seen the property values everywhere just skyrocket to the point where, I mean, really, if you had a real market value or an appraiser come through and look at it, it's probably going to be sticker shocked. That being said, I think that it would still benefit Estacada long-term to sell the business to the business owner that has had this plan for the last couple of years, even if it doesn't mean that we're going to be making as much money as we could. The fact was that we already budgeted for this money several years ago. And we already kind of budgeted a little bit of a loss. And even then, the fact that we've actually had a tenant in that space for longer than what we originally budgeted means that we're actually earning more money than what was originally budgeted because we collected more in rent than we were expecting. That being said, I would really, really hate to tell the owner of Yo Treats, I'm sorry, we're not going to sell you the business for 300 because of the fact that we had an appraiser come through and actually that building is worth 500. And now we have potentially a foreign entity coming into our city who isn't going to care so much about the building the way that the owner of Yo Treats is actually going to care about that building, but they're going to make money on it because that's what is happening with properties right now. So to me, the idea of, are we willing to lose a little bit of money so that the city actually benefits long-term versus getting a little bit more money up front, but ultimately losing those advantages over time? That makes any sense.
Yeah, that does. And my thought from a Yo Treat standpoint, that's already been enacted, that's already underway, so that's out of the equation. If we had something like this in place, we wouldn't enter an agreement up front saying that this is the dollar amount that we would sell this business to you. So I think we would avoid doing something like that if we had this agreement in. It's just at the end of that 2 years, we'd do a real market or we would do an appraisal at that point, and at that point, that would establish the price of the commercial building, which I think people are surprised that commercial buildings can be lower than what we're seeing in houses as well too. I know when I purchased mine, we had a heck of a time establishing a value on it because there's just not enough comparables to do something like that.
Well, I see Councilor Dunsmuir's argument for the benefit of the people. There's multiple ways to look at that. One is by bringing more money in, it allows us to assist more people in the long run. That can be redistributed to more grants and so on. So there's that way to look at it. But at the same time, by having something in there, especially when it's in an ordinance, it may avoid some of the issues where we end up, something we expect to be a year ends up being 4 years, because they know that if they're waiting or they're, if they could push it out further, they might be able to get a better price, or they're not concerned to buy it right away, seeing the price is going up because they know they have a price locked in. So I like the idea of making it a mandatory for a third-party appraiser. That's one way to solve that, or just have us a minimal cap on the, where we can't go below a certain value, because that's still gonna be benefiting them. They could potentially get it below market value, but it's maybe higher than what they originally were expecting to. So it's still a benefit in the way, but at the same time, it's kind of balancing it out where you're not pulling from the community fully to benefit a single source, but instead you're gaining some value, but at the same time trying to give them something below market value as if they went and bought a building on the market. So having like a 10% below market cap negotiation capability, if need be, I mean, that's something to consider. It gives us a little bit of flexibility, but doesn't let it also go too low.
So in a circumstance like that, though, requiring a third-party appraiser, totally a good requirement, so that at least when you're coming to the council and having these property negotiations, that you say, we've had it appraised, but even with this appraiser, appraisal, we are still asking for this to be the purchase price because of reasons X, Y, and Z. But if we had something in here that says that it doesn't matter what reasons X, Y, and Z are, we're still not going to accept money under a certain value, then it kind of takes away the ability for the council to even say, yes, we want to negotiate with you. I mean, if it's already in an ordinance that we can't negotiate past a certain point, then it kind of takes away all negotiation. So but I think that the idea of requiring a third-party appraiser definitely gives any future council the tools that they're going to need in order to make that negotiation, but still the flexibility that they need to be flexible.
I go on. A quick question. So when there's a sale, if I read in here, it requires a public notice and the public input before sale of a property, correct? Peter?
Correct. And this using this tool would also require a public hearing and public notice. So members of the public could come in and comment on this. And then in order to use, I believe is it 277 versus the standard one, which is this in the same ORS chapter, but 275. I mean, you guys would have the flexibility to use either. You also have the flexibility to decide whether to do a deal or not do a deal. So it doesn't force you to sell. It doesn't force you to sell using this mechanism. It doesn't prevent you from accepting sealed bids. It's just added flexibility so that if we find ourselves in a circumstance, similar to what happened in the past, we have a framework to work from. The idea.
So Peter, is the language that's in this at the end, the third party appraiser or a mutually agreed upon price, is that fairly reasonable and customary in agreements such as this?
Yeah, I think all of you have made, you kind of come at this from a different way, but all of you have made really valid points. There are sometimes considerations other than price that are taken into, because sometimes businesses are providing an amenity to downtown. It's also fair that if somebody's getting an absolutely sweetheart deal, or that's the proposal, that members of the public would be aware of that and could come in and register their displeasure or pleasure. And it's really designed, this is really designed to give you guys maximum flexibility and also to be as transparent as possible with the public. Because you guys all know how rumors can fly, and an informed public that understands the options and knows that the city council is being a good fiscal agent for them, while also trying to get some of these businesses and buildings back into business. That's probably going to lead to a happier general public than if they don't understand what's going on or if there's a lack of transparency. And so when I drafted that, those were kind of the key policy considerations that I had in mind.
Okay, thank you, Peter. All right, we can beat this around a little bit.
I've been thinking about this question and I don't know the right wording. So I'm just gonna put the idea out there, put the thought out there. So what's to stop city council, future city councils to, after 2 years, telling the current business owner, you need to either decide to purchase the place or we're going to sell it. What's to stop future city councils from having somebody, a private developer of some sort come in, make an offer, and then force the move on that business owner? Is there, I mean, that's shady, and I know that this council wouldn't do anything like that, but I'm sure it's out there, and I'm sure it's happened. Again, I don't know the right way to word it, but I mean, I'm just thinking about it as, what's to stop future councils from just, backdooring a business owner out of a building that they've been in for 2 years, just because they're not. Right, but after 2 years, after 2 years, if the council puts it to them, you have the first right, and they're not ready at that point. They're not ready. What's to stop council from just selling it out from under?
I think that's the idea of a sunset date.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah.
Renters, that happens to renters all the time where,
That's
you're
exactly
living in
what
a
I was
house.
thinking
Yeah,
on it,
you're living in a house, you've lived there
We're
for 3
discussing
years. and
This as a whole, but thank you. Gary, that's a great question.
Yeah.
We were having a discussion.
Again, I just didn't know the wording.
I just,
for it.
I see what you're saying, and I think that's why the 2 years is there. The business knows for 2 years, this building's gonna go on the market. They need to be ready to buy it in 2 years. And have, if they're not ready in 2 years, to say they can be ready in 3 or 4 or 5. So they have 2 years to prep for it. So they know when they move in there, they have 2 years to buy that building. They better be ready for it, or it could potentially be sold. So it's not like it's being behind them. They know about it. They have 2 years ahead of time to be ready for it. And if they're not ready at 2 years, I mean, that's, it's 2 years to get ready. So, I mean, I can see what you're saying, but at the same time, it's not really in the city to carry that. It's on the business owner to be ready for it or potentially lose it.
And
So,
I don't foresee the city being in a situation like this in the near future. I just, like I said, the thought came to my head and I just wanted to get it out there just as.
but that's why I had the
hate
question
to
about the
see
public
something like
hearing
that.
is if it's publicly has a public hearing, then it's out there for the public to see. It kind of reduces that as well.
And just to clarify, does this, what we're looking at here, does this give a hard and fast 2 years, or is that just 2 years right of refusal? And then, but then there's no hard and fast date. The city could still continue to hold this building indefinitely.
Yeah, this does not force you to sell the building, and it doesn't force you to use this tool. It's just, it gives you a framework and kind of an understanding of the parties regarding what a timeline could look like. So the idea would be you're giving them enough time in order to get the financials in order to make a business case to a bank. That 2-year period. If the city wanted to hold on to the building for 3 years or 5 years or in perpetuity, it could. But what we want to avoid, what the benefit of this is really transparency. Is that members of the public would know in advance, about this type of program, whether they'd want it or not. And then B, in the event that we're going to do something other than a sealed bid, or in the event that the city, some future city council that cares less about local businesses and more about maximizing profit decides to do something else, members of the public would be able to come up, show up and say, those aren't our values. That's not how we believe businesses should be treated in Estacada. we don't want this to happen. We don't want this to be sold to some national developer. We want to benefit local businesses and, shame on you, city council. And sometimes when that happens, when, people are losing a local amenity, and councils aren't supporting local businesses, that really can mobilize members of the public. So this, I think, makes it less likely that that scenario would happen, because everything can be done completely transparently.
And I think we're all in agreement with that. Transparency is the main concern here. It's urban renewal dollars. We have to be transparent. And that's where this really comes down to, no matter what we all like or the profit or anything else, it's transparency. And I think he's covering that with this and covering us. And I can respect that. And I think we should probably highly consider having the framework. Like you said, we can change it. There's nothing holding us to this, but at least we have it in place.
So is there a consensus that you'd like Peter and I to work on this and say, because she puts the ordinances together, to bring it back to the next council meeting? We'd have to do an urban renewal meeting. Is that right? No, just a council meeting, right? Just a city council. So we'd bring it back to the next city council meeting, actually in the ordinance form, that you could go ahead and approve that. Or review it again and consider it to approve.
Okay with that? Yeah, I think we're all right with that.
Thank you, Peter, for helping us to come up with a good option that's transparent and.
Yeah,
gives us-
absolutely. And before I drop off the call, I just want to inform city council of something, because I don't want them to get blindsided. We have a member of the public that has been requesting a phone call with me. What I do, not just with Estacada, but all cities, is I like to have one point of contact which is the city manager. And then if Melanie wants me to work with, your head of planning on a specific project or something like that, then she instructs me to do that and is aware of everything that's going on, which avoids triangulation. And because I represent the city and the city council, and my advice is for the benefit of the city and the city council, I do not take phone calls from residents, because I would not want I would not want them to be able to claim some sort of attorney-client relationship. And the person's emails have gotten, to your staff, have gotten increasingly aggressive. And he seems to have difficulty understanding why I won't call him. And so I just wanted to put it out there for everybody to understand, that my legal advice is for the benefit of the mayor and the council and the staff. And if you're a member of the public that wants a phone call from me, that's just not going to happen. I can't imagine circumstances where it would. If there are some circumstances that I couldn't possibly anticipate, I would be very uncomfortable doing that without the very least, at the very least, the city manager being on the call. And again, this was I had interpreted your charter. I think all of you are aware of what the requirements are to hold office in Estacada, because you had to meet them. You have to be an elector, which means a registered voter, and you have to have resided in the city of Estacada for a year. So I am not eligible myself to run for office or hold office in Estacada, because I have not resided there for a year, and neither is anyone else that doesn't meet that residency requirement.
Okay, thank you, Peter. We appreciate that clarity, so we understand completely.
Okay.
And
All
we
right, so
appreciate you giving your time tonight.
Yeah, you'll know why. All right, thanks, guys, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Okay. So he and I will work on that, bring it back to you I'll give you a couple weeks to chew on it, talk about it again, and then review and approve, or whatever you want to do.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on. Did we agree to take out the last part of that? Sorry, the mutually agreed upon price and just go with third party appraiser? Did we agree that that's where we're going, or?
No, I thought
I
we
think
kept-
we'd leave it as is.
No,
Yeah.
that is,
Okay.
we just didn't add anything about going
Yeah, no
under.
change.
RSC.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're at the next citizen and community group comments. Do I have any? Sandy? No, no, wow. None from the audience, your last chance. All right. We'll go to mayor and council reports. I will start off with you, Joe.
Nothing too crazy. It was a great 4th of July weekend. I love the parade that we had. Got a chance to see that and good to see a chicken, Estacada pride there, the chicken walking down the street. I mean, nothing screams more Estacada than that. That was great. I think that's my favorite part. And I mean, we had a small fire. I saw that would happen, but nothing crazy. It was just a good old fun time at 4th of July. So other than that, thanks everybody for coming out. Good to see you and hope you guys get to come out again next time. Thanks.
Nothing really further from me. Thanks for the great discussion tonight. Really appreciate it, everyone, and appreciate the staff for all the input as well too, and putting this together.
Good, thank you. Katie?
We're halfway through July, and so I just wanted to remind anyone who is potentially considering a run for either city council or mayor. Please start getting your affairs in order because August is coming up and the ballots or the petition is going to be due to the county by August 30th in order for your name to be on the general ballot. And I would really like to encourage anybody considering a run for mayor to please run, or city council. There will be some vacant seats this year. And it would be really, really nice to see some different leadership. So thank you for everyone for attending. Thank you, city staff. As always, you did amazing. Have a good evening.
Sure.
I'm going to start off by thanking you guys. Thank you, city staff. Amazing job as always. I really do enjoy Elena, the assistant city manager. She's amazing. She's on it. Great addition to staff. I haven't had a lot of time to really get to know, is it Evan, the other city planner?
Alan.
Alan, and then
And Mara.
I haven't got really had a lot of time to get to know them, but Elena's she's on it. She's sharp and I really appreciate her. So thank you again, city staff. You're amazing. Sadie, you need to be here when I'm here instead of going to lunch. Again, as Katie said, I'd like to encourage more people to apply for to run for city council. I want to see a lot of names on the ballot along with mine. I will be running again. And I'd really like to see more names up there. It was really fun running last time. There was a lot of names on the ballot and it was really enjoyable. And being up here for the last 4 years or almost 4 years, there's been some turmoil. We went through some crazy times, but I tell you, I wouldn't change it. I mean, I wouldn't go back on it. This has been a really, really good growing experience for me. And I've learned a lot. I've got to meet and know a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have, if I hadn't done this. So I appreciate you, Mr. Mayor, for, being a really good supporting, in a really good supporting role, through this time. It's been nice to be able to talk to you and, run stuff by you. But I and of course, the other counselors, I really appreciate you all for this. And you're not running again. But yeah, sign up. It's a process, but it's worth it. It really is, especially if you really want to have a say in what goes on in this community to help this community, I guess is what I was trying to get at. It is really worth it. It's fulfilling, being up here. So thank you all and come join us.
That was very well said, Jerry.
Thank you.
As Jerry and Katie have made very clear, you can run for office and I think you should. This is no easy task, I can tell you. When you go to run for an office like this, if you're doing your job the way you should, give up a lot all the time. And you give a lot of heart and soul into this. And some days you don't win. Some days you lose. Some days you wonder why you did it in the first place. But was it worth it? Yeah, I think it is. I think if you're the right candidate for this seat, you'll see that it's worth it. So if you want to run for my seat or any of these councilors' seat, run. Do it. Make the commitment. It's everything that it says it is. I am heartfelt. Every day I go home, it's a new experience. Some days good, some days bad, but I get a lot from it. And the people are everything, because that's why we sit up here and you elected us to do so. So we appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody in this room tonight, and thank you for everything that you do. So good night, and this meeting is adjourned.